Hello and welcome back to Snapping Towels for episode 3, joined by my partner, Kyle. Kyle, how we doing?
Cam, beautiful day out here in Los Angeles after a Super Bowl victory. Go Rams, baby.
I'm actually stationed in Columbus, Ohio for the week, so it was a tough loss for the many Bengals fans in this part of the country.
It was a hell of a weekend for college lacrosse, tell you that, for free.
A lot of fun. A lot of fun games.
About.
I will say a little frustrated with the streaming of some of these games. You know, it felt like 3 years ago you could just go on any school's website and click watch and watch any game you could possibly imagine. So, really, really disappointed. You got to subscribe to some service, pay X dollars a month. And, you and I were texting during the games. And you brought up a great point. It's like, okay, maybe they're generating a teeny bit of revenue, per season on these subscriptions, but you'd rather just get the exposure. I think that's far more valuable than the couple $1,000s in revenue they're probably generating on these subscriptions. So unfortunate, but we found a way to watch most of these games.
Yeah, that was frustrating. I mean, ESPN does the best job getting around to a lot of games and putting them on their site. Everyone's got an ESPN login these days, so that's cool that a handful are on them. They tend to be stationed at ACC schools, so you get a lot of teams that roll through those programs. You get to watch them on that with good commentary and some replays every now and then. But I think like the Flow Live TV was killing me, and there was a handful of games, and then you shoot over to a Utah-Vermont game, which might have been like the first ever broadcasted game in Vermont. it seemed like, and there's the drastic difference just killing me. So if you're one of those schools, invest, because
agreed.
I think it's just better for the school and exposure and recruits and getting kids on campus. So you want to see good games, good commentators, hop in your comm program, see if a kid wants to do it live, and call some lacrosse. So yeah. Tips for the colleges.
Yeah, no, couldn't agree more. But one nice thing about this weekend is they really sprinkled games out, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So, starting with Friday night, you had a banger in Baltimore, Hopkins at Towson. Really a tale of two halves for the Blue Jays. Epstein with 6 first-half goals. Looked like it was going to be a Hopkins rout. Towson rallies off a 5-goal run in the third quarter to make it interesting. But what do you think of the game in Baltimore, Kyle?
I thought it was physical. I picked the Tigers. I think that it was their first game, so they haven't had that exposure to gel in game yet. I think it was a big step for them playing a good Hopkins team off the bat. I wish I saw a little more from Colby Smith. It seems like he's their guy defensively, and you let Hopkins guy Epstein have 6 right off the bat. So I'd like to see maybe him drop down and take that responsibility of guarding the stud on Hopkins. So that was a little frustrating at times. It seemed like he was real eager in transition, which is where he's really made his name, out running in transition. But, Towson has the kids with bags and a lot of hook in their stick, and they make exciting plays. So they kept him in it, and there's something for the Tigers fans to cheer for. But yeah, Hopkins was pretty much in control from the jump.
Yeah, I think Towson can still have a nice year. I mean, Nick DeMeo and Andrew Milani down in attack are really nice players who can bury the biscuit. You brought up some baggy pockets. It's funny because 3 or 4 years ago there was this shift, not just in college lacrosse but in all sports and seemingly fashion. Period. It's kind of this high and tight look. High shorts, tighter, smaller jerseys where. As in like 2000s, mid-2000s, early 2010s, the baggy style was kind of the look. Towson really attacked that high and tight look like 3 years ago. It was like their guys were wearing Speedos out there. But they've got like 3 guys right now that look like old school Baltimore kids wearing baggy shorts, big jerseys.
I love it.
Kind of good old Towson style. It was fun, but definitely big win for the Blue Jays. Tough win against an athletic, physical Towson team.
Yeah, I think it showed. We'll talk Hopkins Georgetown later in the show, but you could tell the physicality really took a toll on Hopkins. Towson's a team that you're going to feel after the game, and they made that known pretty much off the bat. They were laying wood. laying big body checks. It was fun. It's good for lacrosse. It's good Baltimore rivalry.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Moving into another Friday night game, UNC Richmond.
Yeah.
Pretty entertaining game to watch. Richmond hung around. They hung tough, I'd say, pretty much the whole way. Couple of 2 or 3 goal flurries by the Tar Heels. Some broken clears by the Richmond Spiders. That kind of made the game tilt towards UNC's way, but that's kind of what makes UNC UNC, right? They score in bunches. They always have good riding attackmen, very opportunistic. But a good showing from the Spiders for sure.
Yeah, and I kind of wrote off the Spiders, honestly, even though we knew they were going to be good. They were going to play them well. They always do every year. And I kind of said, not this year. UNC has too many guys, too old, too experienced. I think Richmond really proved me wrong in that sense. Like it was back and forth the whole game. UNC started off real hot. Chris Gray got hot to start real fast, and then kind of Richmond hung in there, made plays in transition, made plays in the 6-on-6 offensively. They've got skilled attackmen down there that really bury their shots, and then you see UNC go off at the end of the third, and it just it goes from that 1-goal game, 2-goal game to a 4-goal game quick late in the third quarter. It kind of pumped the brakes on Richmond, but they hung in there, and they're a great team in the SoCon. They're going to be definitely in the playoffs there, and hopefully getting at large. Yeah,
no doubt. Their EMO unit was particularly impressive. Really finding guys open inside, banging the ball around quickly, hitting skips, and it's not an easy task. UNC's got arguably the best poles in the country. I know they have some injuries down at the defensive end right now, but they've got long, rangy poles. They're not an easy team to score on when you're man up. So Richmond's man up look really impressive.
That was another storyline for me too. UNC sitting 3 of their starting poles from injuries, which is tough, especially early on in the season. You want to gel as a unit, but it's no fault. Richmond still came out and really didn't phase them. And I don't think it had that much to do with the game, regardless. I think it's nothing new for Richmond to have a great man up and great sticks offensively. I think that's kind of how they recruit and what they look for. They always have talented, stick-skilled players on offense. So
yeah, and on the defensive end, they did something that was kind of interesting. Once it got late in the shot clock, and on many possessions, they would shift into a zone, and that kind of caused UNC to have to change their offense on the fly. Which in itself chews up, 5 to 7 more seconds of the shot clock. And I thought that was a pretty interesting tactic, and could be a copycat tactic moving forward, I think, for some mid-major schools against some bigger time schools. I
think it's a great curveball because, you take the shot, 15 to go in the shot clock. You've got Chris Gray behind, some big middies up top. You snap into his zone. You're ideally going to want Chris Gray up top. So it's then he's got to reposition. That's just good game planning and really knowing your opponent.
Yeah, no, it was great. Once again, face-offs are an issue for UNC. I don't know why both UNC and Duke are struggling at the X.
Hats off to the Richmond guy.
Yeah, no doubt, and the rope unit. One more thing I want to say about this game. I think Chris Gray really had probably the assist of the weekend. In a broken play, classic Chris Gray, classic UNC situation, taking advantage of a broken play. Chris Gray hits Jacob Kelly on a 40-yard frozen rope on the backside, right in the box area. Took his pass basically threw Jacob Kelly open, takes care of his windup for him with where the pass is, and he just sticks it low to high. And that was kind of the game.
You should have just true. I mean, and my take on that is it's one of those early season plays for a defender where it's a little too much in the moment. You got a little excited and went for a pick, kind of like an NFL DB jumping a route.
Yep.
And then they get burned. It's like a walk-in touchdown for the wide receiver. No one's behind him. That's essentially what happened. He jumped on the pass. It was just dropping it at a perfect angle, but he shanked it. He missed it, and it leads to a wide open goal. So it's tough late in the season. That might be defenders on gloves, UNC turnover, but yeah, what the outcome was made Chris Gray look like a young Drew Brees.
Yeah, it was pretty special. So moving on, another Friday night matchup, which really turned out to be one of the better games of the weekend. An overtime thriller at High Point, Colgate traveling down there. Really felt like a good matchup athletically. And it was really fun up and down game. Asher Nolting did his thing, had a beautiful game winner, as he tends to do. But I think the Minikis brothers were really a big takeaway from the weekend, not only against High Point, but they also had a really nice Sunday at UNC between the two of them. But the Minikis brothers for Colgate will be a force to reckon with in the Patriot League this year for sure.
Yeah, they're a great duo for them. A lot of chemistry, I guess, being brothers, that helps. I think High Point, they've played a lot early in the season, and I think this was a great matchup on what their conference schedule looks like. I think Colgate matches up really well with a lot of SoCon teams in skill and athletic ability. So I thought it was scheduling just beautiful. It's like, yeah, you have your big games, you go play a lot of big names early, but you also season them in with not muffin top games, games that are going to challenge you and see where you're at, and to play a tight game overtime early in the season. It's great experience for those guys.
Yeah.
And Jackson Lamb, you saw late in the game, he was the guy I circled. Asher was kind of getting shut off late in the fourth quarter when they were down one, and he was tired. You kind of could see it. He was going the possession before they kind of got it back. There's like 20 seconds left. This kid Jackson Lamb just hits a right to right low burner to tie it up, which was huge. And you like to see guys like that step up in those positions and not just kind of panic trying to get the ball to their guy who everyone knows wants to get the ball. It's kind of like, no, I got a shorty, I'm going to take this, I thought that confidence is great. And then it kind of takes some weight off Asher Nolting's shoulders. So
great point. And it's a very positive sign for High Point moving forward too. If they can have, a third and fourth option, that type of depth will really give a lot of SoCon teams issues. So it's good to see that they've got other guys kind of filling in roles, coming into their own. And Parker Green between the pipes for High Point at 13 saves, in a 1-goal game, obviously an overtime game. That's the difference right there. So kudos to him.
No, it was a great game, and it was all around good experience for both those clubs. But moving on, another great game, 2 burners, Utah, Vermont. This is a streaming service I was kind of bagging on earlier, but which made it a little bit tough to watch. But it was 2 teams we were really excited for. We were really excited for the game, and it lived up to it. Kind of an unfortunate game for Vermont. I thought they looked slow. I thought they looked a little, maybe taking Utah easy when it really should be, their circle game on the calendar. If you talk about programs, kind of new programs that are finding their strides in their conferences, I thought Vermont came out against Duke with a different light than they did against Utah.
Agreed.
And offensively, they weren't clicking like they were in that game, and in transition defensively. The whole thing just looked a little bit like a step behind. Like they kind of overlooked the Utes, and the Utes just still stay on this path of showing up for every game. And fire away.
And from a program like Vermont's perspective, there's really no excuse to overlook Utah at this point, because Utah's already where Vermont is. And, Vermont's a nice squad. They've been around for a long time.
Vermont won their conference last year, so I'd give them a little more credit than that. I think Utah's got a little more to prove on the national landscape, but in terms of program development, I think they're even.
Right, exactly. I mean, Vermont's got obviously more of a history. They've been around. They won their conference last year. And they had some nice TV games last year. I think they had a really good game against Cuse last year. That was fun to watch. But
yeah, that was in the tournament.
Yep. But Utah, I think from a talent perspective and an athlete perspective, is really on par with the Vermonts of the world at this point. So kudos to them. Led by slick attackmen and Tyler Bradbury and Jordan Hyde. Those two leading the way. I think they'll have a really nice year offensively. But I think both these teams, have a chance to win their conference, and we could see them later in the year. We could be talking, Utah, Vermont, lacrosse in April and May. And that'd be, I think, a really exciting step for both programs.
Yeah. I mean, I hope it unfolds that way for sure, because great programs, a lot of skill on the field when those teams show up. And it's kind of, they both should have that underdog mentality where
Yep.
they could go into a big team and win, a big program's house and win. So a lot to watch for from those two. Let's move on to some big dogs, but it didn't really unfold that way, unfortunately, in College Park for the Hounds. It was my game to watch. Obviously a fan. Wasn't a lot of takeaways, wasn't this, the scoreboard really showed a different story. I thought Maryland started out off the bat like they did last week. It wasn't really, there's no letdown in games there. I think face-off wins and goalie play was overall the determining factor. Maryland did can their shot. They shot at extremely high percentage clip. But I think Loyola's offense looked good. When they had the ball, they really made plays. 51 for Loyola, Adam Pantra, he really showed a lot of poise in finishing the ball. He's a skilled player. And their attackmen around him, Kevin Lindley, Olmstead looked great out of the midfield. But then they had a lot of guys that all kind of do the same thing for me. And it's like they have an identity issue on offense, personally, watching them. A lot of guys have the same skill set, whereas there's not that big downhill dodger. There's interesting little pieces that they need to gel and figure out. And once they do, once they start clicking, the Hounds will be a force. But they need to clean up the goalie play, and they need to figure out how to get ground balls off the faceoff, because their percentages were in the 30s in between the pipes and on the X. So when you go into Maryland and you put up those percentages in those categories, it's tough to come away with a win.
Yeah, I think Maryland looked like the best team in the country against Loyola this weekend. Probably why they leapfrogged UVA to be the number one team in the country. Wisnauskas looked, definitely the best player on the field, maybe the best player in the country. Logan McEnany for the Terps, huge day between the pipes. Loyola, as you said, you mentioned the percentages at the face-off X and in the cage. Whenever you play three goaltenders, it's never a good sign. But two, you got to give Maryland credit, as you said, they were just clicking, and that's the telltale sign of a John Tillman coach team, right? They're going to come out ready to play every weekend. They're not going to come in. A
lot of different scorers.
Yeah. Maryland had 11 different goal scorers, and 60% of those goals were assisted. So Maryland's offense is already clicking. Transfers like Jonathan Donville coming in, contributing right away. Maryland's as dangerous as ever.
Amen. I mean, we'll see if Loyola can bounce back. Big weekend at Hopkins, so we're going to we'll talk about that later. But yeah, we'll see what Loyola does in cage, and if they can figure out a strategy to win faceoffs this year.
I think Loyola will be fine once they get into Patriot League play. Charlie Toomey's going to have them have it figured out, and they're I think they're still the leading horse in the Patriot League.
From experience coming, a loss. I don't remember the last time they had a loss like this, but you got to think the board's scrapped. No one's job's really safe right now, especially on the defensive zone. So I don't know. I
can't remember 20 ever being hung on Charlie Toomey in my recent memory.
It's usually the average is usually around 9.5, 10. So 20 is a shocking number. And I think it had a lot to do with possession. When Loyola had the ball, they looked good. They missed a couple opportunities that you really just can't afford to miss against a team like Maryland. It's like early season kind of, woes type stuff. But the bigger sign or problem, I think, for Loyola was communication on defense and those stats at the X and in cage.
Yep, gotta clean it up.
Figure it out. But onto a team that is clicking in the Patriot League, Army UMass. That was a big game. We had circled two teams that, have a lot of grit and show up. There were some ground ball scrums that lasted a little longer than other teams might. It's kind of that
not the best viewing experience watching looking like a youth scrum for a ground ball, but it's representative of, I think, exactly what we talked about in our Pick'em segment last week, talking about this game. We both chose Army. We both knew it was going to be very close. Two very historically tough programs, as we talked about. UMass is is full of mass holes, and we don't need to talk about Army's toughness. We know what they bring to the table.
Yeah.
But it was exactly that. It was a close game, extremely physical, up and down. It really kind of felt like a fun, old school, early season Northeast lax matchup, and it was kind of a thing of beauty. Brendan Nickturn, the kid's a stud. He jumped off the screen as the best player on the field with an 8-point performance, 5 goals, 3 assists.
A lot of poise in his game. He gets to his spots. He finds players. He really does it all.
Yeah, he elevates all those kids around him for sure.
Yeah, and they're comfortable going into games with him at X. I think it really just starts their whole offense. He's their guy, and he made a serious statement to make a Patriot League Player of the Year run.
Yeah, no doubt. He's definitely one of the front runners for Patriot League Player of the Year. One thing I think we do a good job here on Snap and Towels is giving credit to defenses. Exactly, giving credit to defenses and goalies. Wyatt Schulper for the Black Knights had 18 saves, so that's the difference maker. 8 points, huge day for Nick Turn, but your keeper has 18 stops. You're probably going to win the game. So good for them.
Cheers to Schulper.
No doubt.
Well, we'll stay on the East Coast. Why not? Providence, Bryant. Bryant usually doesn't get off the bus for this game. They're just as skilled and just as coached as Providence, but Bryant for some reason comes into the season a little laggy, but not this year. They hopped off the bus straight from Klockner last year. I think they're riding that momentum, even though they lost that game in the first round of the tournament last year. I think they get a lot of the same guys back. Their attack's clicking. O'Rourke McGovern, 8 goals. Or points, excuse me. 8 points.
Yeah, and they combined for 8 points. Yeah.
5 goals. But the other attackman had 3. So, I think it's a great win for the Dogs. Defensively, they clamped. A lot of saves. Goalie play was about even, but I just think Providence was just getting peppered. So
yeah, it's a statement win for the Dogs. Speaking from experience, I've actually opened up with Bryant 3 times, beat them 3 times on opening weekends, and it kind of felt like you're right. Like you picture Bryant, having kind of big wins late in the year, winning the NEC championship, getting into the tournament, upsetting a Syracuse in the Dome or something like that. But yeah, they do seem to have some early season out of conference woes, and to come out with a double-digit victory over a solid Providence team, huge step in the right direction and a huge statement by Pressler's Bulldogs, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I'm excited to see Bryant moving forward. I know we'll have some guests on here from Bryant if they continue this streak. But a big rivalry too. It's turned into Bryant Providence. They're right next to each other. They're pretty much in the same city, so the kids know each other. I know there's a lot of shit talked about this rivalry, even though it doesn't get the media coverage. I know these kids really care about it, so cheers to them.
Yep, no doubt. Crosstown rivals, you got to love it. Moving on to another extremely entertaining game, which took place yesterday on Sunday. High Point, Virginia. Another late game thriller. High Point coming off 1 day's rest of an overtime win against Colgate to go toe-to-toe with the Wahoos at Klockner on a slick Klockner track. Really impressive. And my favorite part about the game was watching both these attack units ride. And that's kind of a hallmark of Lars Tiffany teams. Yeah, it was really cool. And that's a hallmark of Lars Tiffany teams. He's got a history of recruiting attackmen who check their egos at the door and ride like banshees. So it was a lot of fun to watch. High Point kind of matched that intensity at their end on their ride. Braden Maea, number 55 for High Point, really jumped off the screen, not only as a great riding attackman, but really making smart, slick plays in transition. He's a little water bug dodger, draws slides. He can finish it with his left hand. Really nice compliment for Asher Nolting. And High Point had, even though they lost on Sunday, I think they had a really successful weekend, and High Point's going to be very good this year for sure.
Yeah, almost the weekend you wish Colgate had.
Exactly.
You wish they had that overtime win at High Point and then went down and played UNC to a 1-goal burner in it didn't fall in overtime, but it easily could have. That last sequence was absolutely absurd with the High Point keeper just honestly having no conscience. The kid has the ball in a clear with 40 seconds left,
I had never seen anything like this sequence Kyle's about to talk about. So
roll passes it to a short stick D midi that has two guys draped on him. The guy comes up with it, running downfield, ends up getting back to the goalie. The goalie's running down with him. Then he goes for a cross field bounce pass to an attackman,
which he connected,
which he handled. And then ended up getting double teamed. The goalie gets it again, chucks it in the middle of the field to a midi who's streaking down, who gets a great look on Matthew Nunes. But the kid comes up with a big save. Momentum takes him into the crease, which was a little questionable. I think we thought it was going to be an out of bounds closest to the ball call, but I guess that after I watched it twice, the ref came in hard on the crease, and he was a lot closer than us. But
it was a horrible call. I'm not going to don't say he was closer than we were. We had a bird's eye view on television. The kid got pushed into the crease. It was a classic.
That's what we were talking about last week with the push. It's a problem in the
slightly different play, same outcome on the call, and it
didn't take his momentum into the goalie, so there was no flag. But the reason he was there was still the push. So
he got pushed. It was very obvious. He got pushed. Credit Nunes for coming up with a huge save. He really was maybe the best player on the field yesterday.
Yeah, he bailed him out on an early season loss like Duke just had to a good SoCon, ASUN.
Yeah, and I was taking notes watching this game, and the game was extremely physical, and there were almost no flags thrown the entire time. The flags that were thrown, Virginia had a serious struggle on the extra man. We can talk about that later, but there were almost no flags thrown. They were letting the kids play, and I actually wrote in my notes, this is one of the best officiated games I've seen thus far. And then they completely robbed High Point of a last possession, 20 seconds. High Point would have picked up the ball in the end line with 18 seconds, and Asher Knowlton would have picked the ball up. And if that kid picks the ball up,
play out.
Totally. If that kid picks the ball up, they've got as good a chance as anybody to score. Yeah. In that game, we kind of got robbed of at least a last look at the cage and maybe in overtime. But kudos to High Point for going toe-to-toe with the two-time defending national champions, and good for Virginia. We've said it before, and we'll say it again, a win is a win. Georgetown Hopkins. We made a big deal out of Hopkins weekend last week, or their upcoming weekend, which was this past weekend, and really their out-of-conference schedule in general. Credit to Hopkins, huge win at Towson on Friday night. 2 days later, going to Washington, D.C. to play Georgetown. Georgetown, as we discussed, really good team, a lot of transfers coming in, high-flying offense, and they showed it. There are three attackmen combined for 14 points, Watson, Bundy, and Trippy. Yeah. And I think it was really apparent Hopkins was a little bit beat. I think they kind of felt that Towson, that Nadal and Towson team from Friday night, and they just didn't really have that extra juice to really match up with Georgetown.
Yeah, it seemed like Hopkins got off the bus good. Like they just played a game, kind of just still having that mojo going. Yeah. And then it took a defensive switch up to get Will Bowen on ball with Epstein and really force Epstein's hand on taking shots that maybe weren't the best percentage. And then the goalie Georgetown's got their defense, their pulls, push, transition, create a lot of opportunities for the offense. So I think we'll be talking about Georgetown a lot this year.
Yeah, and Georgetown, not only Georgetown, but also Hopkins, as we mentioned, their upcoming schedule.
Best in the country. Best schedule in the country.
We'll talk about this later, but they've got Loyola next weekend. They go to UNC. They go to Virginia. They have Syracuse, Navy, and, my favorite, Delaware Blue Hens before they even touch the Big Ten schedule. So,
we're going to continue to – Hopkins is going to be a team we talk about every week just because of their schedule.
Moving on to definitely the biggest upset of the weekend. And most
one
fun
of the
game.
Better games. If you're a Duke fan, you're not thinking that. You're saying this was a terrible game. But outside looking in, if this was your first lacrosse game you've ever watched, you'd say, wow, Jacksonville's got a hell of a team.
No doubt. And they do. You wouldn't be wrong about it. Huge statement win for Jacksonville.
Program statement,
huge. And good for Galloway. He took over that program, and you can kind of see him in them, right? It's a pretty animated bunch, very energetic bunch,
especially in the goalie too.
Yep, no doubt, and they're not backing down from anybody, and I think that kind of embodies that All-American, Team USA, MLL, PLL, All-Star goalie as their head coach. They've got the confidence of John Galloway, so good for them. Duke, to me, looked really impatient on offense. They did not shoot the ball well at all, but you got to give a boatload of credit to Jacksonville's defense.
Specifically Colin Hilton.
Colin Hinton absolutely put the clamps on Brennan O'Neill. It was the most uncomfortable I've seen Brennan O'Neill since he's arrived in Durham. And also their goalie, Milken, as Kyle just mentioned. It
outrageous.
Seems like
his save at the end of the first half to keep a 7-4 lead was I think probably the play of the game, because it's a huge momentum shift. It was right on the doorstep, wide open goal at the closing seconds. He makes a crazy almost split save grab and just robs Duke of pulling some momentum out of that half. And he shut the door hard, and I think they kept up in the second half because of that.
It was the play of the game. I don't think there's any doubt about it. Going into halftime, had Duke buried that and been within 2, I think the whole complexion of the game would have been different. Credit to Milken. It's probably Galloway's little protege down there in Jacksonville.
Well, UNC transfer, UNC starts a freshman, old guy who's, big recruit, seen shots, goes down to Jacksonville to get coached by arguably one of the best tenders of all time.
It's a great point.
You got to expect something like this to kind of form, and I'm glad he's doing it. He's having a heck of a year, and that's why you do it. If you're a goalie with talent sitting behind someone, there's no reason to stay in these programs. I've talked to a couple people around the league that are in positions like that, and there's this kind of feeling where you have to finish it out, at least compete. But sometimes it's like the coach feels comfortable and has their mind made up. Go put your skill set in someone's hand that believes in you and what you could do as a player. So I think that, kind of going down a little rabbit hole here, but this is just Jacksonville is just a great program that shows that,
Yeah, and it's fun. It's funny because you watch a lot of February lacrosse. Your Army UMass games, your Utah Vermont games. It looks absolutely miserable out there. And speaking from experience, it is miserable out there. If you can go to Jacksonville, for a grad year or 4 years.
Now we're just pumping Jacksonville. We're they're recruiting for them.
Seriously though, I mean, you can go get coached by John
programs
Galloway.
like that. It's you're clearly recruited to Carolina or Duke or Cuse for a reason. Go put your stock in yourself at a program that's hungry, that will use your assets. And if Milken stays at UNC, we're not talking about this incredible save he has for Jacksonville to beat Duke.
Totally. And it's not a coincidence that the kid was taking ACC rubber for several years and comes down and, leads them to an upset over Duke. So
it's not unfamiliar shots he's been taking. So getting Cage in front of Duke is like any other day at practice for him. And I think it showed. I think Duke struggled at the faceoff X. I didn't see Jake Nasso play it really at all.
I don't know why they continue to struggle at the face-off X. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
It really didn't help them. Another thing that I watched this game, I don't know what ESPN crew was on it. It was Sunday.
The broadcast was awful.
I thought, it couldn't have been more of a bias towards Duke broadcast. And, I wanted completely open. I didn't need an upset. You want to see a good game, but the lack of respect these announcers were giving these Jacksonville players was insane. These kids, it wasn't like they were just, balls bouncing the crease, picking up, dunking. These kids were balling out and making plays left and right. Plays on going to be kids that are All-Americans at the end of the year. And there's no, replays, no enthusiasm coming through the broadcast to give these kids kind of, not that they even needed it, but, the love that they deserved, which was quite frustrating watching a team really put an A+ effort out there and them kind of always taking the side of, oh, Duke can come back if this and this and this happens. Oh, now they're down 4 with 2 minutes. They need to score twice quick. It's like, dude, give credit to these kids like, Tyler Capone and Max, what's his name? Max Walbaum, transfer from Tufts. These kids were making
and our boy Jack Dolan.
Jack Dolan, I mean, he's been there. That kid's no stranger to a hat trick, but these kids were making just swaggy, great plays that are high skill set, high, risk level, and them coming through it on a massive stage against a national championship contender. So,
yeah, no,
I'm high on Jacksonville.
We couldn't be higher on the Dolphins.
Yeah,
but from a Duke perspective, and if you're a Duke fan, they're no stranger to the early season loss. Duke's going to be fine. They're loaded as always. They're going to be humming in April and May. This could be a really useful wake-up call, honestly. And I think they look a little disjointed on offense right now. They're kind of trying to figure out where to put their pieces. They had Dyson Williams coming out of the box in the second half, no longer down in attack. We'll see how that ends up. I really like Dyson Williams. I think he's a dangerous lefty for them.
I think he should stay down at attack because I think
I agree.
Like we saw early in the year with them, I think he's a great complement to Brendan O'Neill and Robertson.
Yep, and Robertson.
But you put a guy, Sean Lully, down there who wants to dodge. It kind of jams things up with O'Neill, and he's not as willing to get inside and finish. Dyson Williams is probably one of the best inside finishers in the country this year. So to say he can't do it as well as him is no knock on Sean Lully, but
not at all.
There were a couple ground balls and weird checks or shots that hit a Jacksonville player that you're almost like you're used to seeing Dyson Williams corral those and sling one off his hip for a goal. It's like having him on the field benefits your whole offense. Not that he's going to beat a Dodger, but because he's going to scrap and find those little holes to make plays. And he did late in the game when he was coming out of the box even. But I thought it was, as someone burns out down my road, I thought it was an interesting
Gotta love LA.
Yeah. It was an interesting kind of personnel switch up, thinking that, they might have a matchup with the Jacksonville second pull and adding in a Dodger there. You never know what they're thinking, but that was my take on it. And, I don't think it would have been the difference maker. I think it was Jacksonville from the opening whistle, but it might have been a couple bounces that way that could have swung it Duke's way.
Yeah, and one last thing I'll say about that as it pertains to Dyson Williams, he's so elite at playing in the gray, as we like to call it. So much of the ACC play is decided in the unsettled. So I like the idea of having him at attack on the field at all times.
Yeah, he was your leading goal scorer at attack as a freshman. So, you bring in Michael Sowers, he comes out of the box. That now, he's a junior. He's a junior. So he's earned it. He scores. Keep him out there.
Yeah. All this talk about this Duke-Jacksonville game, Kyle's mentioned a few times we're going to have some guests on this year. We've got our first guest coming in to join us. Just had a hat trick yesterday. We mentioned him earlier. 3-1, actually. 3 goals, 1 assist against Duke yesterday in the big upset win. We got Jack Dolan joining us from Jacksonville. Okay, joining us is our first guest of Snappin' Towels, the 5th-year captain midfielder for the Jacksonville Dolphins, Jack Dolan, an Upper Arlington, Ohio native and the 2021 leading scorer for the Dolphins. Jack, thanks for joining us.
Pleasure to be here. Excited.
Oh, yeah, let's get right into it. All right, dude. So you're coming off this big win at Duke. Practice the week before. What was the vibe?
It was good. We had 8 days. We played on Saturday, so we had an extra day. That was big. We got to see Duke play Manhattan on Friday. That was also big. And that extra day just kind of makes the week go by slow, and you feel pretty prepared when Sunday comes around.
Oh, absolutely. And I'd imagine Coach Galloway had you guys up in arms early in the week. But what kind of message is he giving you guys throughout this week going into a game like this? I know you guys just played Hopkins tight. that was kind of a good test early, and then you back to back, you've got another one. What was his message on this kind of bender of an opening season?
I think he was telling us that our against Hopkins, our core like aspects of our game, I think looked pretty good. Like our 6-on-6 defense, our 6-on-6 offense. It was just kind of rough around the edges, clearing, man up, man down, things like that. So I don't think we were kind of trying to reinvent the wheel this week, but definitely, clean up on some of those smaller areas that we kind of got exposed against Hopkins in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he coached at Duke. He's played under JD. So what kind of was he kind of giving you guys insights on how they might come out against you guys at Durham in kind of a sleepy Sunday game, or was it more, just sticking to what you guys do?
Yeah, definitely. I think watching that Manhattan game on Friday kind of like opened up some eyes. Like, this team's human. They make a lot of mistakes too. We got some good game plans on like how we're going to attack, specifically on offense, how we're going to play transition D. I think those were two of our biggest game plans going in, and I think that's where we took advantage the most against them on Sunday.
Yeah, no, you guys were awesome in transition on both sides of the ball. Can you tell me a little bit about the job Colin Hinton did on Brennan O'Neill?
Yeah, I mean, I think all the guys on our team know it that Colin, we all call him Six. He's one of the best bowlers in the country, man, and you know that when you're dodging him, nothing's gonna be easy. So, I mean, I can't say I expected him to give him that much trouble, but I mean, I can't say it was much of a surprise. The kid's really good.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it was like the toughest sledding I've seen for Brennan O'Neill since he arrived in Durham. So kudos to Colin. Also, can't overlook Luke Milken in the cage. I mean, he went off. Tell me a little bit about Luke.
Yeah, he came in grad transfer from UNC this year, and he's been amazing. I think all of our transfers, especially our grad transfers, have been amazing. Kind of just gelled right in with this group. And I mean, that save he made at the end of the first half to go into the half up 7-5, that was probably the biggest play of the game, I think.
Total turning point in the game. And I love that you brought up the grad transfers. Your team's definitely kind of a senior-laden squad. Can you just kind of give us a sense of what that's like? Team chemistry, having a veteran-laden team, heading into your senior year is probably a little bit different than your early years at JU.
Yeah, for sure. I think when I was a freshman, we had a really good senior class. Kind of showed us what it can be like if you're kind of all bought in together. And then I think 5 seniors from last year came back to do the 5th year. And then obviously we got those grad transfers. So it's been a good mix. And those guys, honestly, I kind of feel like have played here their whole careers at this point by now. So it's just nice that, we can show these young bucks the way, and they're going to follow us kind of at will.
Heck yeah.
Hell yeah.
How do you guys get everyone involved down there? You guys go to a certain spot after practice, or just hit the beach and start fishing? What's the routine?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a little chilly these past couple of months, but usually all the sophomores, juniors, seniors live out at the beach, which is like 15, 20 minutes away. So we're hanging out there. There's a lot of good restaurants, bars, and stuff out there. But all the young bucks are on campus, so we're trying to get them out, Uber them out to the beach as much as possible. But it's a good dynamic for sure down here.
One last thing, Jack. We talk a lot about play on the field, but one thing we really want to overlook is a locker room guy. Is there anybody in the locker room who's always snapping it around, keeping spirits high? Like, a Division I lacrosse grind, it's not always fun. It can kind of feel like a job. So, those locker room guys are important. You got anybody on the roster who kind of fits that bill?
Yeah, no doubt. You definitely got to have some guys that make it funny every day. I mean, it is a grind, but at the end of the day, you're doing this to have fun. I actually see a guy walking in front of me right here, Bo Hunter. He's one of my favorite guys to hang out with on the field. He's always messing around, trying to teach me how to throw behind the back or twisters and stuff like that. He's pretty even-keeled, low-key guy. So, yeah, I think Bo Hunter also played a very good game on Sunday.
Bo Hunter, all right.
What a name, dude. That's an all-name team.
I was going to say, how
sure.
out the window and get him in, sit down and snap around. I'm going to hop in shotgun with you. We'll drive around a little bit. But that's awesome. I know we're watching you guys now as we were before, but I hope the season continues for you. You guys do it up in the SoCon and get the bid.
Absolutely. It's hopefully it's just getting started here and continue to build on this and keep it rolling.
Fuck yeah.
Jack,
Cam?
hell yeah. Thanks so much for joining us. Really, really appreciate it. And best of luck moving forward. We'll have eyes on the Dolphins for sure.
Absolutely. Thank you, boys.
Jack Dolan, our captain.
Really, really appreciate Jack coming in and grabbing a towel and sitting down with us today. And like you said, he's definitely played a huge role in cultivating a winning culture down there. And I love how he brings up in the interview, we had a great senior class when I was a freshman, and that kind of put us in the right direction. And I think this year they're going to have a good year. They just beat Duke. They're a senior-laden team. I think they're going to lay the groundwork for a really, really nice 3 to 5 year run by Jacksonville coming up here. So Jacksonville's a hot program to watch. And like I said a few weeks ago about Utah, if I'm going through the recruiting cycle and Jacksonville, John Galloway gives me a call at Jacksonville, I have no choice but to take them very, very seriously. So
yeah,
respect.
Especially with what he's talking about, living on the beach and getting the freshman Ubers to come hang out.
Let's go.
I was on York Road with my thumb up in the air trying to get a ride to a bar. Those guys are out there Ubering their guys over to build that team camaraderie, which is great, and which inevitably gets you these wins on Sundays.
Yeah, no doubt. So big ups to Dolan on a hell of a performance yesterday and a banger of a first interview on Snap and Towels.
All right, let's get into our top performers from last week.
Yeah, Kyle, who do you got?
Ooh, I got Dylan Watson, 6 Gs versus Hopkins in a big win for Georgetown. He shot 13 times, buried him 6. He was their steady hand offensively and was just always in the right place at the right time, it seems. So I'm going to give it to him. It was a guy I didn't have circled on my list of players to watch, but now I do.
Yeah, no doubt. He had a great weekend. We promise this isn't the Jacksonville Comm Department podcast, but
it should be after that win.
Yeah, right. They've earned it. No, but I got to give much respect to Colin Hinton. Our boy Six had a hell of an 8-day stretch, not just a big win against Duke, but 8 or 9 days ago now, holding Joey Epstein to 0 goals on 6 shots, can't be overlooked.
Apples.
Right, 0 points. Period.
Really just held him out of the game. So in that 2-goal loss to Johns Hopkins is impressive. That could have been a 2-0 start for Jacksonville.
Yeah,
so,
and
he had a big reason for it.
For sure. And had Epstein had his regular 3-1, that game looks a lot different. And maybe Jacksonville's not quite as confident going into that Duke game.
So just some guys to watch for next weekend's games. Both those teams have big games, so I'm sure we'll be keeping an eye out for Watson and Hinton. Yeah.
6.
Yeah. Down in Jacksonville, they call him 6. It's electric. Yeah. It's just a hammer of a nickname. Just
it really is. It's
6. It's respect. It's a nod. They might retire that number after the season he's putting together. But let's hop into our pick'em segment.
Yeah. So first on the slate, we got Duke Denver.
I'm going to take the Pios. I think their offense is clicking. They've got a lot of athletes in the middle of the field. That's going to open some things up. It's a tough pick because of the Jacksonville loss that Duke had. They're going to get off actually they're hosting another home game. I feel like I've seen 10 games in Durham this season already. But
it's always at Duke. Always.
They did like a classic in Georgia one time. They do try to mix up this year. I guess it's just at Duke. But yeah, it'll be on ESPN. Hopefully we get a new crew in there, or else it's just going to be a Duke parade. But I'm picking the Pios. I think Jack Hanna's going to go off. I think their defense is very athletic. They're going to be able to go match feet with a lot of midfielders from Duke. So we'll see.
Yeah, I'm going Duke. I'm betting I'm betting on Danowski to have a bounce back game. I think Denver is a good team this year. I think they're slightly down. Coming off a nail biter 1-goal win against Utah and a kind of a pedestrian 4-goal win over Air Force. As always, a win is a win. But I don't think Denver really jumps off the page. Definitely not early season. I think they have a lot to figure out. I think Duke comes with a bounce back W.
All right. What do we got next? Georgetown Penn?
Georgetown Penn. First episode, I think I went on for at least 30 minutes about how excited I am about Ivy League lacrosse. Couldn't be more thrilled that we're getting an opening Ivy League weekend this weekend
with some good games. We got a lot on our pick'em. They're playing. They're not starting in with a pancake of a game. They're coming in playing some good guys off the bat.
Yeah, Penn, Georgetown. I'm going with Penn. I think Sam Hanley, midfielder at Penn. The kid's 6'4", 220, number 26. Will be an absolute problem all year long in the Ivy League, but I think he's going to have a huge performance. I think that Mike Abbott-led offense is going to be humming. They're going to be chomping at the bit after getting absolutely robbed of, a year and a half, almost, 2 real seasons of lax. They were an elite team in 2019, losing to Yale in the quarterfinal in an overtime game. I think they're going to be back with a vengeance, and I think they're going to have a huge, huge statement win against Georgetown this weekend.
Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot for the Penn Quakers. I think it's going to be a hosing. I think I'm taking Georgetown all the way.
A hosing.
I think wouldn't be surprised if Bowen had matched up with Hanley at the midfield to kind of match that body, two big bodies on each other. And I'm taking Georgetown's offense still humming and their hot goaltender.
It's going to be a great game. Two really good teams.
Game we're gonna tune into if it's available on the streaming.
We'll get it. We'll make it happen. Even if Flo is trying to make us not watch it, we'll watch it. Moving on, Villanova, Yale. Kyle, who do you got?
I got Yale. I'm coming in. I think the Bulldogs are have a lot of studs coming back offensively. No strangers. It's a team that we've talked about this, I think, in private, but the way the Ivy League runs fall ball is criminal. And I think there's two sides. I think it's tough because you want to see them play earlier as a fan, but I also think as going through 4 years of fall ball that's every day, nonstop, on weekends too, sometimes you have some scrimmages, you like to see them rested, and maybe it does them better late in the season. So I think there's two sides to that story. But the way they're held to just practicing 6 times with maybe an inner squad in there, it's kind of like, it forces them to do a lot of stuff on their own and kind of just loophole their way around this rule that was implemented probably 50 years ago. I don't know, but I'm just saying, like, you're paying them to be there to play. Why, not give them the best chance to succeed late in the season with, enough preparation. So with that being said, I still think Yale takes it. I think Villanova is really good, but I think Yale has the defense, and Shea's not going to let them come in with a little lag to them.
Yeah, I think Yale's going to come in. I don't think it's going to be close. I think Yale is going to be, again, just like Penn, chomping at the bit to get back out there and have a full season. I don't think Villanova has the players Yale has. I think, just to piggyback off what you said about the Ivy League fall ball rule, it is a little bit of a double-edged sword. You'd maybe like to get out there a few more times in the fall, but personally, I had some injuries in college, and I'm no stranger. Yeah, neither of us are a stranger to going under the knife and getting something fixed.
As a result of, maybe too much ground and pound in the fall, which is really just unnecessary because everything kind of gets scrapped over winter break. You could say you have everything figured out, but you don't. So
yeah, that's where I was really heading is I think you and I are no stranger to very intense fall ball schedules. And I think there's something to be said. Fresh legs are very valuable. And if you have trust in your guys to kind of stay in more maintenance, right? Maintain your shape. Don't blow it out in September, October, November. I'd rather my guys at Yale being fresh for a Saturday tilt at Penn than, I got a couple guys on the injury report.
Yeah.
A couple guys, nagging injuries. He's been dealing with a hammy since fall. I think there's it's a double-edged sword. You want to see your players getting out there in the fall and developing that chemistry. But I think fresh legs may be more important because I think Yale and Penn this year have a lot bigger goals than just, being ready for Georgetown week 1, right? They want to win the Ivy League and be a real contender in the NCAA tournament. So
yeah, no doubt. No, yeah, and we'll keep talking about that. It's an interesting conversation, but yeah, I got Yale. Cam's got Yale. Hopefully, Leo Johnson gets some good action. Freshman. We'll see if he can create some big waves. I think he's a stud. We'll see what happens. Next game, grinder of a game. Maybe not as pretty, but
not as pretty, but a huge game and might be just as important. Rutgers Army.
Yeah, I mean, I'm taking the Scarlet Knights. They're hot. I know Army's hot too. They've got it's just a battle. It's one that I could pick Army too. It's a toss up, but I'm taking Mitch Bartolo. They've got a good thing going at Rutgers. Great keeper, so I'm gonna have to go with the Scarlet Knights.
Yeah, both blue collar programs. Rutgers is sporting a lot of transfers this year, maybe the most in all of NCAA, most graduate students and transfers. Which I think
them and Notre Dame. Notre Dame
right.
11.
Yep, which I think makes Rutgers as dangerous as anybody after Maryland in the Big Ten. But I'm going with Army. Huge win against UMass this weekend. I think Brendan Nichtern will be the best player on the field again. I don't think the margin will be as wide because of Kyle's guy at Rutgers. What's your boy's name?
Mitch Bartolo.
Mitch Bartolo, right? Of course.
The hammer.
Yeah, kid's excellent. Big body, can score in a lot of different ways. But I think Brendan Nichtern again will be the best player on the field, and Army will come away with the W. Moving on, another massive tilt in Charm City, Hopkins Loyola.
Another rivalry game for Loyola. It's kind of 2 in a row.
No love lost between these two programs.
No, I mean they share a lot of things right next door to each other. So I'm going with the Hounds coming back from a bounce back week. I know Chuck's getting after them this week, really putting guys' jobs and playing time on the line. So I think an unacceptable performance in Cage at the X would be surprising to see that again. But Hopkins has only beat Loyola twice in the last 10 years. It really has turned into not that.
Loyola's dominated this matchup. Absolutely.
The fans come out. It's a great environment wherever it is, at Hopkins, at Ridley. It sells out every year, and I wish I was getting out there for it, but I'm going to be excited to tune in.
Yeah, I'm taking the Jays. I'm pretty hot on the Jays this year.
Bastard.
Yeah, I think it'll be a really good game. Charlie Toomey's not going to, not have a bounce back game in terms of the performance of his team. They're definitely not giving up 20 goals, maybe ever again this year. Maryland, I think, is on a different level than Hopkins, both offensively and defensively. I think we're looking at an 11-10, 12-11 win by Hopkins. I think Joey Epstein's going to have a big day. I think Hopkins is going to come away with a W here.
All right, that'll be one I know we're going to be talking about next week, so circle that one. Let's hop into UNC Ohio State.
Look, I think Ohio State's got a nice team this year. I think, Bobby Van Buren is the guy to be watching on that team. BVB, homeschooled recruit out of North Carolina, number 44 for the Buckeyes. Big-time freshman.
And Myers, you got to give him love. He scores every game. There's, those are the two guys, and Jackson Reed. So Ohio State's got the guys. I mean, if UNC comes out like they did against Richmond and kind of has a lull in the middle of the game, I think it's a tighter game than most people probably will expect. But
I think UNC is going to be too much to handle.
I'm taking UNC as well.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I think UNC's got too many players. They can score in too many ways. And I just think, I can see this being a pretty tight game in spots, but I can see, just as we discussed earlier, a 1-goal differential really quickly turning into a 4-goal differential. A couple broken plays, Chris Gray scoring in literally 3 different ways.
I think also an X-factor player that needs to jump out is Henry Schertzinger.
Yep.
Schertzinger.
Yeah. He was kind of all over the place this weekend, to be honest.
I love his split dodge. I love his shot. I think what he does well is that dodge and shoot. and I think he needs to do a little more of it. Low wing to high wing. I think you offensively in the flow, when they do create that space for him and he's able to attack in the way he does it well with that left to left or right to left shake, it really benefits when it's kind of, someone's in his way or someone's trying to pick it through. Like, it's almost like cut that wrinkle,
Yeah.
I don't need that wrinkle to kind of let him do his thing. I like what he does. And if he even wants to go behind with it, I think you add that in instead of kind of like a kind of dummy, drift off the high wing,
Yeah,
So,
I agree. And one thing to say about that, like give him space. I don't want to necessarily say put him on an island to dodge, but make that slide longer, right? Because like I think we haven't seen it yet from him. Maybe he's got this in his bag too, but he's definitely more proficient in the dodge and shoot than he is in the dodge and pass. So make that slide longer, and so his hands are free for that extra half second, and you can really pull it, as opposed to just having to bang it down to Chris Gray at X every single time. Get out of his way. I agree.
I love it. And then Solomon and Kelly have to show up too, and I think I think
they will. They tend to do that. They tend to show up. Also, worth noting, it's an emotional game for both Joe Breshy and Nick Myers, the head coaches of these respective programs. Breshy was the head coach at Ohio State for at least a decade. He had a tragedy here in Columbus, Ohio, where his toddler son passed away. He kind of brought the Buckeye program to national relevance from really being irrelevant when he got there. When he got there, they weren't even a scholarship program. So, it's a huge game. Nick Myers coached under Joe Breshy. They're very, very close.
They play in the fall every year for a big game.
Very, very close. It's a big game for both these guys, which is why I think it'll be a tight game. But UNC's got a little too much talent for the Buckeyes to handle this year.
Amen. Great note in there too. Let's move on. Big offensive teams. Maryland, Cuse. I know I'm going to watch it just from a history standpoint and with the firepower these two teams hold on offense.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty excited to see Gary Gate and Petro really have to put their coaching prowess to work against the John Tillman-led Maryland Terps. I'm taking Syracuse. I think next week on Snap and Towels, I think we will officially be able to say Syracuse is back. I think Syracuse is getting a W this weekend.
I'd love that. I'm going to take Maryland, though. I think that it's just going to be business as usual going into the Dome. And it's at Syracuse, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, going into the Dome and really just showing that, there hasn't been a lapse in their program history. And they're going to keep on this kind of train of rolling over their out-of-conference opponents. So we'll see what happens. I think Cuse has some question marks on D, who's their best on-ball. Brett Kennedy is, but he likes to run in the transition. So it's a little bit of we'll see who's going to be guarding Wisnauskas and who's going to make up for all that talent that Maryland's got. So
it'll be an exciting game, no doubt. Moving on, last but not least, we got our Jacksonville Dolphins. Our Jacksonville Dolphins hosting Marquette. Marquette, solid program. They put together a really nice 7 to 10 year stretch as a new program in the early 2010s. I'm sure they've got good players. They've always got Canadians, transfers. Interesting school, interesting program in Milwaukee. I think it's going to be a nice matchup. I think Marquette's going to really get up for this game. Obviously, Jacksonville coming off, the biggest upset of the year thus far. It'll be really interesting to see if Jacksonville has a bit of a hangover or letdown. I don't see Jack Dolan and Galloway really allowing that, but we'll see. But I'm going with the Jacksonville Fins.
I'm with you. I'm rolling with my Fins. I think their D is too good. Marquette has goal scorers and they've got the grit that makes plays, but I think Jacksonville is on this it almost seems like the energy in the program is the Cinderella year they're having because, I don't think it's the same story next year. I think a lot of these names we're talking about just disappear and it's kind of back to the chopping block for Galloway and getting transfers and stuff like that. So I think this is their year. I'm taking Jacksonville to the Final Four. No, I'm just kidding. Jacksonville beating Marquette.
Roll Fins.
Roll Fins.
Yeah.
And,
Before we move on from the pick'em segment, I just want to make it clear. I was 7-3 in my pick'em last week. Kyle split 5-5. We're going to be keeping track all year long. We'll drop the percentages each week.
marquee matchups.
Yeah. Moving on. We discussed it at length, probably a little too long for the listeners during the pick'em. But look, Penn Georgetown, I think is really the game to watch this weekend. The Ivy League is my favorite story of the year. Again, we were robbed of 2 years of Ivy League lacrosse. Opening weekend for the Ivy League, they start a little bit later. Huge game for them. Obviously a huge game for the Penn Quakers, but just a huge game for the Ivy League in general. Georgetown right now is kind of a marquee program. If the Ivy League, after the 2 years they've had, can come in with a hammer of a W against Georgetown, we'll know Ivy League lacrosse is back and they're for real. So I can't wait to watch that game.
Absolutely. I'm going to do Loyola Hopkins. I'm taking the Hounds on a bounce back.
Yeah, definitely worth watching. Another matchup for me is Duke-Denver. It's always a great game. Kind of two programs that have found a way to schedule each other seemingly every year, and then seems like they meet in the tournament every other year. So very, very familiar with each other. Two of, the best to ever do it at head coach and Bill Tierney and John Danowski. I think Duke comes with a bounce back game. I think Brennan O'Neill will have a huge game. I'm hoping we see Dyson Williams more at attack than midfield. And there's another guy I don't want to forget. Number 1 for Duke, really, really jumped off the screen to me. A defensive midfielder.
Ledman.
Garrett Ledman, kid's a stud. Excellent on the wings, can spark transition. Had a goal, got robbed of another goal. I don't know if he got robbed. He kind of ran into the crease, but would have been a huge goal for Duke. Kid can make plays. I'm looking for a big weekend out of Ledman.
Love that take too. Ledman is a monster up and down the field. I'm going to go with Maryland Cuse as our last game, our last marquee matchup. I think that offensive firepower and just talent that's on display on the field is going to be something you got to tune into, and you got to think Cuse is going to pack the dome for this one, getting a hot Maryland team involved.
It's going to be electric in Central New York. Maybe the biggest game they've had in the Dome in a while. I mean, I know they're in the ACC, so they host these schools every year. Maryland being
out of conference history.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm with you.
Maryland coming into town. Maryland, aside from Virginia, probably the best program in the country in the last 5 to 10 years. Maryland's number 1 team in the country, just absolutely dumped on Loyola 20-8. I'm sure Maryland's I'm sure Maryland's favored here. But a huge, huge game for Gary Gate and the Syracuse Orange. Can't wait to watch it.
Well, I'm excited. We're going to have a lot to talk about next week. So smash that subscribe button, and we'll see you guys next week to talk about the shakedown, what happened over the weekend.
Thanks for joining, Kyle. See you next week.
Cameron.